cloistered nuns in television is without question one of the most ridiculous things that could have ever happened. It just evolved. When I went to Channel 38 in Chicago, I walked in that little tiny, tiny studio that I had never seen a TV studio before. We had already been publicizing books for a couple of years, reaching a lot of people. But I remember standing in the doorway and saying, it doesn't take much to reach the masses. And I said, Lord, I've got to have one of these.
I'm Raymond Arroyo. Welcome back to our World Over tribute to the life and legacy of Mother Angelica. In 1959, Sister Angelica had been invited by the Bishop of Birmingham to establish a monastery in the Deep South. But how to pay for it? Here we see the first glimmer of Angelica the entrepreneur. She started a mail-order business, a fish lure business to be exact, run by she and a few nuns. That enterprise paid for the construction of the monastery. Once they got to Birmingham, the nuns sustained themselves by roasting peanuts. The little old peanut company distributed their nuts to stores and arenas all over Alabama. At the same time, Mother was offering a Bible study to a group of Episcopalian women that expanded to include many others. This led to an audio tape ministry where her talks were recorded and disseminated, played on the radio, and soon she was invited to speak all over the country. Those talks were electric.
I want to take Abraham. Do you have any idea when you read that beautiful scripture, do you ever put guts into it and blood? Or is it just a little story you read? So isn't it wonderful? Abraham had faith. 3 cheers. Do you really know what he did? You know what happened to him? Here's a man 90 years old. 90. Anybody here 90 years old? See, nobody 90 would even come tonight. And here's Abraham sitting near his tent, probably doting. And he hears a voice that says, Abraham! Says, huh? Said, Abraham! Yeah? Abraham, you shall be the father of a great nation. You shall be the father of a great nation. Here's Sarah, listening. She goes, yeah. You know what she's thinking? She's thinking whoever that is doesn't know. Abraham believes her, and that's the end of the voice. 9 years later. 9 years. Don't you think Abraham wondered if he ever heard a voice? Don't you think Sarah, oh, Sarah must have been something else. Some women are so naggy. I bet she kept saying every 3-4 months, I told you, I told you, I told you.
Mother Angelica started to appear on Protestant television programs where she became something of a fixture.
And the monastery's there now.
Right.
That you designed on that paper.
And on paper, and I brought it down
Took us 3 months to find land. And I got to tell you this. Took us 3 months to find land. And when we finally did, the architect, we bought this land. We went up north while he made the engineering plans and came down. He said, Mother, you're going to have to sell that land. And I said, why? He said, because it's like this. He said, you don't have money to build the roof, let alone blast that rock. And he said, it's solid rock. We took a core test. I said, no, that's where the Lord wants us. He said, you don't understand. You know, men look at women like they were dodos. You get that? You get that. And if you're a nun and a woman, it's worse.
Her popularity led her to record a Bible series for the Christian Broadcasting Network, and her friend Jean Morris and Sister Raphael, her vicar, were the crew, marketing team, and primary supporters. By 1978, her television success and the emergence of cable inspired Mother to begin exploring the idea of building her own network, a Catholic cable enterprise. Matt Scalisi was there at the very beginning, and he joins me now. Matt, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, tell people, give them a sense of how fragile this enterprise was at the beginning. People think, oh, Mother had the whole plan. It was all laid out.
Well, not at all. As you know, Mother's told the story better than I possibly could. I mean, you know that her inspirations happened bit by bit. It wasn't like God revealed this entire plan at once. She tells the story about being at the Chicago television station, tiny little studio, and looking up and saying, well, it doesn't take much to reach the masses. Lord, I got to have one of these. But you know, that was long before, really, the moment that you just described. Mother, I think it would be good to lead into it by saying Mother's sense of faith, Mother's sense of direction and inspiration was something she shared with everyone, and that was that you live in the present moment, meaning you're not looking forward, you're not looking backward, and sometimes that means you don't know where the next step is. And so Mother loved to say, faith is having one foot on the ground, one foot in the air, and that queasy feeling in your stomach. She said it 1,000 times. And I think the reason she said it 1,000 times is because she lived it 1,000 times.
Give us a sense of what we're missing about her. In the sense of the Mother in those early years, she was very intuitive. She was very in touch with you all. This was a small nucleus of people around her. It wasn't 100 people. It was a handful of
we
people.
started with 4 or 5 people. You know, that there was a, as you know, there was a garage under construction. I was just graduating college at the time. She asked if I would come help out. I thought I was doing a friend a favor. I'd grown up and down the street from Mother, and she was very special to me, and of course I would say yes. And I came here with really Jenny Dominic and 1 or 2 other people to help out to see if we couldn't help produce TV. We were never certain how we would afford television equipment, how we would move on from here, and if we made it, where it would ever find a viewership. So, you know, things were fragile every day, and you know, it'd be easy just to talk about the financially fragile. There was plenty of self-doubt. There were plenty of times where you would step out in faith, and you'd begin to produce something that you thought had merit, and then you'd hit a roadblock. It happened over and over. It probably still happens today. You'd hit a roadblock and you'd go, well, Lord, she would say, Lord, will you lead me here? Where do you want me to go now? And you made a comment just prior to air where you said sometimes Mother found herself out on a limb and the only direction to go was forward. And so she would do so, not knowing what was beyond, you know, her vision. And I think that was the beauty of it, is that she completely trusted God, and she was perfectly willing to accept that if He had brought her to this point only to let it fail, that she'd been faithful to the inspiration, that she had done the best she could, and if it failed, it failed.
What is her legacy in your estimation?
Well, there are tens of millions of people, some Catholic, some not Catholic but Christian, some not Christian but yearning to understand and believe. I've met so many of them myself, and I've been away from the network since 1993. Sometimes without even knowing who I was or where I came from, stories would emerge about people whose lives were touched by this network. And sometimes it was about Mother, and sometimes it was about something completely different. So the legacy is that her ministry, this inspiration, lived on and will live on beyond Mother Angelica's involvement.
Yeah.
I think that's the true test, right?
Yeah, Matt Scalisi, thank you for being here and for all you did in those early days. And you continue to stay close to Mother. She spoke fondly of you for many, many years. So thank you for coming.
Thanks very much, Raymond. My
Now,
pleasure.
EWTN was founded as a spiritual growth network. That's what Mother said at the time. But the culture at large and currents in the church would make it into something much more. Our tribute to the life and legacy of Mother Angelica continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Mother Superior Angelica. Mother Superior, we have very little time available. I want to find out why it is that you think so differently, for example, from Jim Robison. You don't want to collect money. You don't want to preach politics. Why not?
I believe the network was created by God to teach the person in the living room, the person in the pew, how to live in a nitty-gritty, gutsy world, how to live the gospel, how to be inspired by the Spirit.
God bless all EWTN viewers, and thank you, Mother Angelica, for having a vision, a spry little woman who said, it can be done when everybody said it couldn't be done, a tower of faith.